It really gives me great pleasure to introduce the first speaker this evening. It's Matt Tomlinson, and he's our Leeds campus dean. And whilst unfortunately Matt can't be here this evening, it really does, he didn't want to miss the opportunity to be part of this event. And so he's pre-recorded his talk. Matt will be sharing his own personal experiences within the legal sector as a gay man, how it has changed, and what more can really be done. So please welcome Matt.
Hi, my name is Matt Tomlinson and I'm the Campus Dean of the Leeds and Sheffield campuses at ulaw. This month is LGBTQ+ History Month, and as part of the celebration of this, ulaw have been running a series of events and talks that brought together both internal and external speakers who've been able to share their experiences in a really inspirational way. LGBTQ+ History Month is really important to me as a gay man who joined the legal profession at a very different time. It's been quite remarkable to have witnessed how much progress has been made really in the past decade, and it's down to members of the LGBTQ+ community and allies that have really been able to share their stories and to have spoken out and to have put diversity and inclusion truly on the agenda to achieve this progress. It's really a small contribution, but one that I am delighted to be able to make to share my own story as part of the celebration of this month. So what was it like joining a law firm as a gay man? So when I joined the law firm that I trained with, things were very different to the way they are today. Diversity and inclusion wasn't something that was really on the agenda at all. And law firms, by their nature, certainly have been very traditional organisations. There was no visibility, therefore, of any, I suppose, representation from the LGBTQ+ community, and certainly I didn't have any visibility of a gay man working within a law firm at that time. So really, it was quite clear to me that I had my kind of professional life and my personal life, which would sit outside of work, and really for the kind of purpose of work, I was to fit a mould of what I believed the model trainee solicitor or newly qualified solicitor should look like. I had a very fortunate experience in that I had a first-class training, and I had a really positive experience of training with the firm, which I actually then went on to qualify and stay with for a number of years after qualification. I learned a huge amount. It set me up for the career that I've ultimately been able to enjoy, and has brought me to the point at which I am today. But equally, and reflecting back on it, it wasn't altogether easy. Obviously, I suppose having a part of your identity that you weren't being, you couldn't be open or honest about, and certainly, I suppose kind of looking at aspiring solicitors going into the profession today, and the kind of advice that I'd want to give them, it is a very different place, and I would always be very encouraging of anybody from the LGBTQ+ community joining a law firm, being open about their identity, and also I suppose kind of recognising the kind of wealth of support that there is actually available now within law firms. So what did I want to be when I grew up? I think thinking back to school, I probably didn't really know truly what I wanted to do when I was going to grow up, so to speak. I always enjoyed English, and I had a particular interest in modern languages. And I think when it came to the point of actually deciding what I'd study at university, that probably determined the course I ultimately chose. So I wanted to do something, I think, commercial. So I picked a business course with modern languages, because I think really that was my passion, and the prospect of being able to spend some time abroad was really appealing to me. So I studied international business and modern languages, and I spent 2 years both studying and working in Paris. I think when I was growing up and looking, obviously, you know, my kind of chosen career, it was during Section 28. So really, there was very little, if any, actually, information at all with regard to LGBTQ plus representation in industry. And obviously, that, you know, had an implication on many members of the LGBTQ plus community in terms of obviously how they, I suppose, kind of approach their ultimate career goals, and I suppose the kind of worries or uncertainties that they had or harboured about going to work, not knowing, I suppose, or not having the ability to kind of see themselves explicitly represented within the kind of commercial world. I think it's fair to say the past decade has seen a huge amount of progress in the area of diversity and inclusion, and law firms, you know, have really woken up to what they needed to do to ensure that their workplaces were diverse and inclusive. I think it's been really down to advocates from the LGBT plus community who've been able to share their experiences, who've been able to speak out and ensure that, you know, their voices were listened to. That obviously the amount of progress that has been made to date has actually, you know, been achieved. And it's also been ally networks. So those allies who've been supportive of the LGBTQ plus community and individuals who've identified as part of that community in their workplaces, that have really, I suppose, you know, safeguarded their identities and rights within a workplace, and have really, I suppose, made them, you know, feel comfortable and supported. I think one, you know, key thing that law firms have recognised is that diversity and inclusivity can only bring, you know, value to a law firm. Society and the, you know, companies that law firms advise day in, day out are represented by all manner of different individuals from different backgrounds, and therefore their advisors should really reflect the kind of breadth and spectrum of those, you know, identities within society and people working with it within industry. And it's really, you know, that representation within the law firm that will lead them to ultimately being, you know, better advisors that relate to their clients, and their clients being able to obviously see for themselves that the kind of diversity within their workforce obviously reflects the diversity of the individual client, or indeed, you know, the people within the organisation, the client organisation. I think it's very hard for members of the LGBTQ plus community working in industry or in a law firm where they feel that their identity isn't represented within that institution, or even that it's not acknowledged at all, and that they're just having to fit the mould of what they perceive is expected of them. And, you know, I suppose we're reflecting on my own career and my time in a law firm. You know, often I suppose the kind of perception I had was that mould was really cast around sort of heterosexual males who could talk about football or sports or golf, and that was really, I suppose, the kind of, you know, main topic of conversation within a team or indeed with clients. And, you know, that is, I suppose, not inclusive, where you don't relate to I suppose those kind of areas of interest. And obviously conversation then doesn't become inclusive, and it leads to you as an individual feeling that your contribution is somewhat less or inferior, or that you don't fit in, whereas your actual work is what matters, and your ability to perform your job, and the kind of part of being able to contribute to team chat or conversation with a client should really be about you as a person, and the kind of interesting things that you can offer to that conversation. Events like this are so important for members of the LGBTQ plus community who are aspiring to a career in law, to hear from people who have gone before them, who have experienced the kind of anxieties and challenges that they are facing themselves, but have gone on to succeed in their chosen careers. And it's an incredibly powerful thing to hear from people who represent you in your kind of ultimately your kind of chosen area. I think my first tip to anybody that's listening today and who is looking to embark on a career in law, and perhaps has reservations about where they should apply to and what that might feel like for them, is to really do your research, look at organisations, and look particularly at the values that organisation or firm is promoting. Look at what their diversity and inclusion charter looks like, and I suppose what's really important is what evidences the work that they're doing to ensure a diverse and inclusive workplace. Also look within that material at who actually works there, so who within their people represents the diversity and inclusivity that they are obviously promoting. And that should give you a kind of, I suppose, true sense as to how committed they are as a firm or organisation to ensuring diversity and inclusion. And ultimately, that will then lead you to think about whether that's a place that you want to work, and whether it's a culture that you want to be part of. And my second tip, I suppose, is to never really let your identity stand as an obstacle to your own achievement. In fact, your individuality is your biggest asset. The challenges that many of the LGBTQ plus community face are adversities which are, I suppose, a kind of part of a life experience which ultimately will make you stronger, and it makes you very empathetic, I suppose, to other people's struggles, and that in itself is a very important characteristic and quality of a lawyer. Emotional intelligence, the ability to empathise or understand a situation from somebody else's perspective, because ultimately you're advising these people. And as I previously I think commented this evening, society is obviously made up of many different people from all walks of life, and those people will seek legal advice in many different capacities, whether it be on an individual basis or whether they actually work in an organisation which is seeking advice from a law firm, so on the part of their actual organisation. And it's the ability to kind of relate to those individuals that makes you, I suppose, the kind of lawyer that really stands out.
Thank you for that. So I think it was that was really important. I think in terms of Matt sharing his experiences, I think for everyone, having role models is incredibly important. If you can't see yourself in that position, or see someone like you in that position, then it makes it very difficult in terms of looking at where you progress and how you can move on. So really important that Matt shares his experience and provides some, I think, hopefully some really helpful and useful tips for people. And I think what it does is also give us hope as well, that although things are not perfect at the moment, it's moving in the right direction in terms of progressing forward.